speaking of analytics and rankings and polls and all this stuff, the AP top 25, I think it was the
coaches poll.
Coaches poll. Yeah, correct. Coaches poll came out earlier on Monday, and Memphis did not make the top 25, but they were the highest ranked group of 5 team. What are they? The others receiving votes?
They are 30th. They're fifth in others receiving votes. They got 44. Boise State right behind them with 30. And then the next group of 5 worth mentioning would be Liberty at 15. Again, it continues an offseason and a preseason of high expectations, and they're going to have to reach those expectations. I honestly, I know, like, now after seeing what Memphis can be, you sort of don't think about things like this as much. But I think with preseason polls and, like, talking about those, I think this is the first time I've ever seen a Memphis team in a preseason, others receiving votes, even being a part of a poll. Even 2019, when they made the Cotton Bowl, I don't think they were thought of like this until they started winning ball games. Somebody brought me back to maybe D'Angelo when he returned for another year. They could have been thought of as others receiving votes, but I think this is the first time I can remember.
Let me ask you something about that, because I do think that's interesting. I think nationally we've heard more talked about a couple of group of 5 schools in the offseason. I think we've heard more talk about Memphis. I think we've heard more talk about Boise State and Liberty. And I think all those rosters are good. All those teams are expected to be really good teams this season. But do you think, and this may be obvious, but just to have some conversation on it, do you think expanding the college football playoff to 12 teams and having an auto bid for a group of 5 school, has that made national analysts and these people that are typically only talking about Georgia and Alabama and the top teams in the country, has it made them look deeper into group of 5 schools to just be more educated on it? What's your take?
I thought it was going to be that way, but no, because you don't see any group of 5 schools getting a nod into the preseason top 25s anywhere. Right. And you would think, like, okay, maybe one should get in, for God's sakes. Like, you're going to have a team in the college football playoff, at least try to project who that's going to be and throw them in the top 25. I think that you have to be keenly aware by the time you get to the playoffs. But I'll say this, I think most of the and I think you can speak to this. I wonder if you have the same perception. I think a lot of the national college football media members still are just saying, okay, yeah, they're going to get that spot, but we don't really care. They're not going to do anything once they get that spot. They're just getting it. So I still think that they're completely dismissing the group of 5 because they don't actually view them as a threat. They don't view whatever team that's going to be as any type of threat. And after last year and Liberty playing Oregon, losing 45-6, I kind of get it. But I think there's some teams that are really trending in the right direction that recruit better than a lot of Power 5s. Like, I think Boise State and Memphis are 2 great examples of that. They recruit better than a lot of these middle of the line ACC and Big 12 schools. They do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when it comes to the perception of the group of 5, the perception of the Memphises, Boise State, Liberties of the world, it's got to be proved first. And I think there's some of that with every team in the country. Like, no one's going to be crowned until you see it. And then you'll see analysis start to come up more and more about that team and where they stand and what they can do. But I think there's an entirely different level of that for the group of 5 schools. And I don't think that's an entirely unfair way to approach it at all. Because if you're going to compete with teams that are reeling in top 10, top 15 recruiting classes every year and are able to get, top 5, top 10 transfer portal classes every year and have the resources that these schools do, I think you do have to prove it. I don't think there's anything unfair about that. Now, kind of coming in with a mentality of they don't matter, or they're just kind of getting that to make people happy and whatever, they're not going to do anything anyway. I think that's a little too negative for my liking. But to say, hey, look, we're not really going to put a lot of stock into a group of 5 school until they prove on the field that they can hang with these other teams, I don't think that's entirely unfair. Think about Cincinnati several years ago. They had to earn that. Like, they had to earn being talked about. UCF in 2018 or whatever, 2017. Like,
but also think about how much they had to improve Cincinnati. Yeah, they had to go on the road against Notre Dame, and then they barely even had a shot at the top 4 being in the playoff.
You're right, and it's a different landscape now because of the expansion and stuff like that. But I just think for any group of 5 school to get true respect from national media, national analysts, national college football fans, like they're going to have to look like world beaters. And that's just the truth of the matter. Like you can't, if you're going to go play Charlotte and win by a touchdown, then no one's going to take you seriously. But if you go beat Charlotte by 50,
sure,
then people will, winning other games, and people will take you seriously. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
The only thing I'd say to push back, right, is I think you say they don't really crown teams until they show it. I think they crown some of these middling Power 5 teams, Power 4 teams so quick. Like Oklahoma at number 16 in this poll. Are you shitting me? What you really, after last year, they lose Dylan Gabriel, they lose some guys of the draft. Do you really think that Jackson Arnold's going to come in and just light the world on fire in the SEC? USC at 23 with a new quarterback, no Caleb Williams. They were 7-5 a year ago. Gave up 42 points to Colorado.
Right.
Like they just weren't that. I don't know. I feel like they do crown some of these Power 4 teams before they even show it on the field. And I would argue that sometimes these group of 5 schools, when they're returning a lot of guys like Memphis in particular, like I feel like they should get some similar treatment to some of these middle of the line, Power 4 schools, given what they're returning, what they have coming back, the amount of continuity, the production you've already seen from those guys. It's just strange to see them. I think in this day and age, you never see them in any preseason top 25 polls. You just see them in others receiving votes at best, and then you have to work your way up. And I get it, but I also I don't see the same type of treatment for some of these really average Power 4 schools.
Yeah, no, you're right. The treatment is not the same, but
it shouldn't be because you're not playing the same competition, but I don't know. I think there are situations where they probably should throw a group of 5 school into the top 25 and they don't.
Yeah, there should be more respect in certain scenarios, depending on, like you're saying, returning starters, previous years, stuff like that. But that's not necessarily there.